Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Cell Med, and today we have episode number 1 of MEDviews, and today I'm going to be speaking with a medical student at the University of Pittsburgh, Baraa Nawash. Before we get started for today's interview, we're just going to go ahead and do a quick biography. So Baraa Nawash is a first-year medical student at the University of Pittsburgh. She's from Cleveland, Ohio, where she stayed and attended Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland for undergrad and graduated with a degree in biology. She has an interest in healthcare advocacy, refugee and immigrant health, mentorship, and research. She spent 4 years in a developmental neuroscience lab at Case, working on genetic therapeutics for severe neurodegenerative diseases. She's also involved currently as service chair of her medical school class, volunteers at eye clinics, and is an admissions interviewer at Pitt Med. She hopes to continue fostering her interest in serving the underserved during her medical career and is excited to learn more about the evolving field of medicine. Now, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and hop right into the interview. Hey, assalamu alaikum, Baraa. How you doing? Thanks for being on the channel today.
Walaikum salam. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, is there anything in your bio that I mentioned that I might have missed or you want to add or want to emphasize?
No, not at all. Thank you for, introducing me. It was good.
Okay, great. So to hop into the first main question is, what led you to the field of medicine?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's a question that you get a lot when you're interviewing for medical school. And it's what I wrote my personal statement about, which I don't think we've ever talked about, but we can definitely get into it. So I went into medicine for multiple different reasons. And primarily the biggest reason is because of my personal story with my brother. My brother was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia when I was 9 years old, and he was in his second year of college. And it was a really big shock to our family, and it was really impactful for our family dynamic, especially for him who was struggling with his own illness. So having his severe mental illness and seeing how it kind of transformed his entire behavior and who he was really startling to see as only a 9-year-old kid. You were just so concerned with like riding bikes and watching Kim Possible that you weren't really concerned with your siblings, especially when something so serious happens, but then suddenly you are. And during that time, it was only my mom, who's a single parent, my brother, and then me in our household. So as I grew older, I became more and more responsible for my brother. And about 16, when I got my car, I basically became his caretaker while my mom was at work. And that meant making sure he was medication compliant, watching him take his medicine, taking him to the pharmacy, making sure he's going to his doctor appointments, and just ensuring that he's overall okay. And so by becoming responsible for him, I learned what it meant to be responsible for others. And I knew I wanted to do that for other people. So my time with my brother really changed my life. And alhamdulillah, he's okay now. But, becoming responsible for somebody else and seeing how that felt didn't really deter me from doing that. It made me want to do it more and emulate that for other people. And so that was really big for me. And that's what kind of led me on the journey of becoming a physician. On top of that, as I mentioned, my mom is a single parent. She's an immigrant. So English is not her first language, and seeing how communication in a doctor's office and with other physicians was really important for her health also made me want to become a provider for other people who go through similar struggles as her. So these two things combined allowed me to understand that this is how I want to help people, and let me figure out how I can do more in my time in college.
Great answer. Sorry to hear about your brother, but I'm glad that pushed you to go into something like a field of medicine where you're going to be helping so many people in the future. So the next question is, obviously you go to the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. So why did you choose that school?
Yeah, I chose Pitt for a lot of different reasons. I actually chose Pitt the very last day you can pick a school, I think, for medical school. I think it's like April 30th. You have to pick.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, down to the wire, I have to pick a school. Yeah, so I was between Pitt Med and another school, which I won't name because out of respect, but they were a brand new school in a city that I would always wanted to live in. And it was completely free tuition. It was going to be a really cool opportunity. But I ended up choosing Pitt for multiple different reasons. One of them being that I think Pitt offers you the opportunity to become the physician that you want to become no matter what. You can be a community leader and be a community physician, or you can be a physician who does solely research. You can be a physician who has private practice or work in a huge academic institution. Pitt offers you the opportunity to do whatever you want to do. And for me, what I wanted to do and what I hopefully want to still do is combine my interest in underserved health with also something that's, cutting edge, cool, sciencey, like specialty. So I don't know what that is yet, but I think so far Pitt's already shown me that you have any resource that you want at your reach. So anything that I would like kind of like want to do, like I have a huge list of research mentors that you can pick from, and there's so many different fields and niches, and you just have that all at your disposal. You also have the opportunity to work in your community and be the only medical students here in the city. So I think that's like really an understated perk, is that when you go to a really big city like LA or New York or Chicago, you're a medical student with 3 or 4 other schools. But here at Pitt, you're the only ones. You get to be partners with different community members and opportunities, and it's just for you. So I think Pitt's really great in that sense. And it's also close to home, which is really important for me. So that's the big reasons why I chose Pitt.
Okay, awesome. So obviously, I mentioned in your bio when reading is that you were involved in many extracurriculars during undergrad, one of which being was working in a neuroscience lab. So what other extracurriculars were you involved in during your time at Case?
Yeah, working in the neuroscience lab was really important for me. It allowed me to see that research was a really big component of the work that I wanted to do. Like research is so huge in medicine, and I think that, you know, being a part of that for about 4 years or a little bit more than that kind of showed me that I want to continue doing that and pick a school that really focused on that, and Pitt does do that. I was also involved in a sorority called Alpha Phi for my entire time in undergrad, and being an Alpha Phi kind of showed me how to be a leader and how to use my voice, because you have so many women around you who are supporting you and who you are, and they want you to see, like, be confident in yourself, be able to speak in front of a room and know how to effectively and efficiently communicate with other people, you know, learn how to be a good community member and give back and do service projects and philanthropy. And I think Alpha Phi offered me all those things. One of the biggest things that kind of almost solidified me wanting to go into medicine wasn't the research or wasn't my leadership skills, but was working as a patient advocate. I was a patient advocate at the University Hospital, Rainbow Babies Children's Hospital. And it's a program called Rainbow Connects, which I know a few John Carroll students do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Rainbow Connects was a way for me as a medical team member to connect patients with resources in our communities. It was an underserved community in Cleveland called the Huff neighborhood. And what you do is you have your own set of patients, which is really awesome. You get to connect with them later on and call them and see how they're doing. Hey, how are you? How's your family? Kind of have that really interesting, unique repertoire with somebody else. And I got to connect them to food resources, utilities, housing, diapers, all these different things that they need that go above and beyond their physical health that are just as important. So I think seeing that and seeing the holistic outlook of a patient, and being able to have a first-hand role in that was super cool and a very humbling experience.
Okay, that's awesome. And I think for John Carroll students that might be incoming or at currently John Carroll, I think that's a good opportunity that you guys can partake in that you just did a great overview of. That's great. So the next question is, obviously there's something that haunts all undergraduate pre-meds, and that's the MCAT. So what did you do to really kill your MCAT in terms of, like, obviously you're able to get into some really good prestigious schools. So what are some tips that you have for pre-med that are planning on taking the MCAT or who are going through the process right now? And what did you do to do well?
No, yeah, thank you. I think I did okay on the MCAT. I didn't do anything crazy well. Alhamdulillah, I did all right. I got to a position that I'm grateful to be in. I would say the biggest thing that I did, which really, really helped me, it really depends on your major, but I took the MCAT after my sophomore year of college, but before my junior year. So I did it in that summer between, which, yeah, like it's
super
pretty
early.
intense. It's super early. It's really intense. You have to do all of your prereqs before. So that means doing everything those first 2 years. And that meant for me taking summer classes my freshman summer before my sophomore year. So I don't know if it's applicable to everybody, but I can tell my story. So I did everything my first 2 years. I took OChem, physics, all the things that you needed to take before. And I studied for 8 weeks in the summer, and it was a dedicated 8 weeks. So that meant, like a 9-to-5 job basically. And I was able to gratefully have that to do that. I did Kaplan books. I used UWorld. UWorld was one of the most beneficial resources that I use, and I recommend that to anybody. And I use the AAMC material, which is a material from the people who make the MCAT. And so I thought those are the most beneficial, especially UWorld. So I would do UWorld first, do all those materials, and then I would do all the AAMC material, do all your practice exams like you're taking the test. That means the same time, the same breaks, the same hour you start. And then I took the exam at the end of August. And the reason why I said I think I'm really lucky is because I took it between my sophomore and junior year, I had less of a pressure on me because I knew I could take it again. And so what I always tell everybody is that yes, the MCAT's about studying, yes, the MCAT's about being prepared and knowing how to take the test. But I think a huge understated part is the mental part of it. Not making the exam bigger than it is, not making the exam this huge overarching thing like this wall blocking you from medical school. It's just one component. And if you just relax and breathe and know that you did your best, I think that will alleviate the huge mental block.
Obviously, like after you get past the MCAT, which is obviously just another component of the medical school admissions process, then you have to deal with the entire process of applying to medical school and going on interviews, speaking to faculty and current students. So what are some advice that you'd give to people who are currently going through the process of applying to medical school or people who are interested in applying to medical school?
I definitely think if you're interested in going to medical school, you should definitely apply and go for it. I think, it's something that I think people, like I said, it's a huge mental block. People make it something that's bigger than it is. But if you're very confident in yourself and you know you want to do this, you should never feel like anybody's stopping you from doing that. I would say my biggest advice is to think early about it though. So have your letter of recommendations prepared at least 6 months before. Know that you're going to apply in that cycle and take the MCAT a few months before. Have extracurriculars that you know you're passionate about that are relevant to medicine. So that means, have you volunteered in the hospital? Have you shadowed? Have you done research? Do you love science, or do you see yourself, I actually like engineering a little bit more? Make sure that you're making a decision that you've at least prepared 1 year in advance to understanding I've done all the steps necessary. I would also say that essay writing and what you write is a huge, huge understated portion of the application. I think if you can effectively write and showcase who you are as a person and show the admissions committee, yeah, maybe my MCAT wasn't that strong, or maybe I did really horrible this semester, but I'm still a person who's passionate about this and I deserve to be in your school, they'll listen to you and they'll read it. I remember when I was going through my interview process, people would literally, my interviewers be like, hey, you did this. I remember you reading about this. This is a really cool story. They would read it and like mention it as they're interviewing you. So I think that having those essays and really paying attention and focusing on what you write is a part of the application process that you can really mold to yourself and make yourself unique, which you are. So I think that's a really cool part.
Moving on to kind of like the next part past like the application MCAT process of it. How did you find medical school to be different when compared to college?
I think it's different in the sense that it's obviously harder, but I think it's unique because it's pass fail. So in undergrad, you're so worried about, I need to get an A, I need to get a B plus, I need to make sure I get a good score. You're so focused on the grades that you're not focused on learning. And I think medical school is really unique. And honestly, like I've enjoyed my time better as a learner in medical school because you're not focused on grades, you're focused on learning. And I think that's super cliche, but it's the truth. You're learning things because you know that this could potentially be a diagnosis that you can tell a patient, or this can be a part of your differential because you remembered it from one of your Anki cards. So I think that medical school fosters an environment that's more focused on you learning and more enriching because of the pass-fail dynamic, which I would recommend to anybody to choose a medical school that is pass-fail. I also think that it's different because you have more time, a little bit, like a lot more time in terms of like, obviously you have way more free time in undergrad, but I think you have more time to figure out the kind of person you want to be in your career because you'll have like an hour here or two or there to volunteer, and it's like a little bit more enriching for you because when you're shadowing a physician now, you like will know what that means versus when you're an undergrad and not entirely sure. So I think overall it's been a better experience for me.
And going back to actually one more question about the admissions process. So something that you mentioned in your bio was that you work and you advise for the admissions committee for the University of Pittsburgh and you interview people. So what are some things that you guys are looking for in potential applicants that want to be admitted into Pitt Med?
Yeah. So I guess I could only speak for my experience and the experience of an interviewer, not solely, University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine.
Right.
But from my experience, I would say a big part is we want to see that somebody actually wants to go to our school. So I think my biggest advice would be before all your interviews, make sure you look at the school's website and see, okay, what are the programs and opportunities that this school has that are really unique and would fit with my personality? And if the school sees that you've read into the school, you've, studied their curriculum, you studied their extracurricular opportunities, you know a research lab you potentially want to join, or you see this program or club that you'd want to be the leader of. I think showing them that you're going to be a leader at their school and you've looked into it and you know it's a good fit for them, that shows that you're going above and beyond the other applicants who didn't look into that stuff. So biggest thing I'd say and biggest advice would be to do your research and know that the school you're interviewing for is the school for you.
So, what does a typical day as a first-year medical student at University of Pittsburgh look like?
Yeah, so I think with COVID, it's a little different. Um, so everything's Zoom, everything's
Yeah.
virtual. Yeah. But I can tell you my day to day. So I get up pretty early. I like to either, unwind and either meditate or pray or work out in the morning and make sure I'm all cleansed for the day. And then I like to study. I don't go to any lecture or any class. Some people love it. Some people hate it. Some people watch recordings. I don't watch anything. I like to only learn from my syllabus, which they give us for each class. So what I do first is I go through the syllabus to make sure I learn the material and stay on top of everything from my week. And then I use third-party resources, which are resources that the people who make the step 1 exams will produce. So that means like Boards and Beyond, people use Pathoma, Anki, people like Sketchy, all these different resources that you can either find for free or you can pay
Yeah.
for. So I'll use those. And then that's my day and I study. And I also like to make sure I cook all my meals and eat dinner, spend time with my roommate, at least give myself an hour or two every day to like watch something on TV that I've been binging, which was Queen's Gambit during my finals week, which I always made time to watch at least an hour of.
That's
So
good.
yeah. And then I would say my weekends would be for like clubs. I'm on my university's executive like class council, so we'll have meetings once a month, and I'll sketch in that time, or I have a meeting once a week for interviews, or I'll have time a few hours to potentially shadow or do telehealth and get to meet a physician or have a meeting with them and get to talk to them about what they do. So you have time throughout your entire week to do these little things that kind of remind you why you're doing this and putting in so much work.
So, what is one thing that you wish you knew going into medical school that you might not have known when you were first stepping into it?
It's a lot more studying than I thought it would be. It's like a lot of work. And I remember earlier telling you, like, yes, pass fail offers you a lot of time that you didn't think you had, but at the same time, it's way more material and it's way faster than undergrad. So I didn't realize it until you're in it, which I guess everyone always tells you though. Everyone always gives you the fire hose analogy where it's like you're like drinking from a fire hose, but you don't really know it until you're in it. And it's true. It's so true. It is so hard, and it's like you're studying all the time, and you can't know everything, you can't learn everything, which is the beauty of pass fail, and you just got to accept that. I think if I could tell myself something or give myself advice, it would be don't come at this like it's undergrad. Don't try to learn everything. Don't try to get an A on your exams because it's just not reasonable. Give yourself those opportunities a few hours in the days to be yourself and to relax for yourself. I think for you especially, or any person who's coming in right after undergrad, it's going to be hard to let go of that mentality. But if I could give advice, it would be to really just let go of that grade mentality and really just embrace that pass fail.
So, is there any advice that you would give to people who are in high school that are interested in going the pre-med track and eventually become a doctor?
Yeah, I'd say get involved early. I think I was really grateful because I was able to get involved into a research lab while I was in high school. I think a lot of high schools also offer like summer programs that you can get involved in with, like, going to volunteer at a hospital for a summer or get to shadow somebody. I think a big misconception when you're in high school, especially even me in college, I was like, people don't want to help me. Like, why would they want to help me? I'm like this like little pleb, but people really want to help you. And especially physicians, they want to mentor and teach. So don't be scared. Go out there, reach out to people, volunteer, do things, and discover if this is really right for you. Because once you're in those experiences, then you'll know firsthand.
So, before we end the interview, is there any last parting advice that you want to give to anyone that's interested in becoming not only a doctor, but anyone that's interested in a healthcare profession, whether it's nursing, dentistry, pharmacy. Since as medicine, you all work together as a team. Is there any like last advice that you'd give to people who are interested in this field?
Yes, I think healthcare impacts so many people. Healthcare doesn't happen in a vacuum. Every decision that you make is a decision for an individual who's a part of a community at large. So I think if you want to go into healthcare, you have to understand that healthcare is more than just a physical, more than the prescription that you're giving, or more than the physical therapy that you're giving your patient at that hour of the day. An individual who's coming to see you is in their most vulnerable state. They're seeing you and they're a part of, they have kids at home. They may not have the money to pay for their electricity that month, or they are on government assistance and their food stamps are providing them enough money to feed their entire family. And I think all these components as a healthcare provider are incredibly important to understand so you can be the most effective person that you can be and an advocate for all your patients. So my advice to people who are entering the healthcare field is to understand the social determinants of health, which is a super like catchphrase word, but it really is really important because it will make you more compassionate and empathetic about an individual who's coming into your office. So if I'm writing this prescription or if I'm writing or giving this person advice, am I understanding their circumstances or the context of their health? And with that said, I think if you are able to do that, you can be the best provider you can be because you're understanding who the person is at large and in a whole viewpoint and look.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was a great interview, Baraa. Thank you again for really taking your time out of your busy day as a medical student to, answer some of these questions. I'm sure this is going to help not only college students, but high school students and anyone interested in the field of medicine. So thank you for your time and good luck with the rest of your year.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Bye.